around for this whole day, and we will start right away with item D, big game regulations. Repeat performance for at least one of the people on the panel. So who's going to kick it off and introduce it?
I will. Good afternoon, Chair Wall, Vice Chair Hatfield Hyde, members of the Commission, Director Colbert. For the record, I'm Derek Broman. I'm the Game Program Manager. And today we are here before you for agenda item D, which is the adoption of the 2026 Big Game Regulations. And I'll let my colleagues introduce themselves when they get to their topics. Michelle, is it possible to see the PowerPoint? Oh.
What are you talking about, Derek?
Somebody did that to me. Thank you, whomever that was. This is, as many of you know, this is a pretty large agenda item, and but we are trying to pare things down to be as quick and consistent as possible. So we'll have a lot of our regular updates about our general regulations proposals, some feedback on some changes that have occurred in the recent past, and we'll give you some species-specific highlights. But I will point out early on that much of today's discussion we're going to try to save for the changes or the proposed changes to Eastern Oregon mule deer hunts for 2026. So just prefacing that now that we're trying to save and reserve the time for that topic. So ODFW's mission is to protect and enhance fish and wildlife and their habitats for current and future generations. As wildlife managers, our number one job is to manage wildlife populations for long-term health, and this is what we do day in and day out. Our actions are informed by data and science, and we spend literally thousands of hours collecting data on different populations, their habitat, harvest levels, etc. each year. We are on the leading edge of research on many species, including assessing the impacts of a changing climate. For example, ongoing mule deer research is designed to quantify the relative and combined effects of environmental variation, habitat, nutrition, and predation on mule deer survival and population growth rates. All of this data informs our extensive planning processes, which outline management objectives and strategies and actions to achieve those objectives. These plans provide us a roadmap and give transparency to our public, and that's how we're going to manage the public's wildlife. We work every day to implement these plans, whether it's working on invasive annual grass project in John Day, our NRCS biologists installing thousands of miles of wildlife-friendly fencing, protecting habitat with partners through an acquisition such as the Minum, or working with agencies to guide land use proposals. As part of our on-the-ground work, we also manage for sustainable harvest, crafting regulations for your consideration that are informed by data, guided by our plans, and subject to public feedback. The reports and proposals before you here today are the product of an intensive, lengthy process that is never ending, as we are already collecting information for next year's decision-making process. So why are we talking about hunt changes implemented in 2022? Well, wasn't that long ago that we went through a massive big game regulation review process, and where we enacted numerous changes. And as part of that, we regularly committed to coming back to you, the commission, with feedback on how those changes went. And so just for example, last year I reported back to the commission regarding some controlled archery deer hunts that were implemented in 2021. And so similarly, I'm reporting back to you on some changes from 2022 after 3 years of implementation. So in 2022, the department created 16 new controlled archery elk hunts. Now it's a shift away from a general archery season in those areas. And the change was in response to existing harvest and hunter density concerns within those areas. The change to controlled hunts was to provide biologists with a tool to more closely manage harvest and make necessary adjustments. Excuse me. But also strive for equitable impact amongst user groups, as we could only reduce any legal weapon tags when reductions were necessary. So, looking at those controlled archery elk hunts 3 years later, we observed very high participation and opportunity with limited impact to those archery elk hunters. Of those 16 hunts, 4 of those hunts had leftover tags available, meaning that there were tags available after the controlled hunt draw had occurred. Of those 12 with no leftover, less than half of the tags were drawn first choice, meaning more than half were drawn on choices second and above, and they expended no preference points in acquiring that tag. Across all 16 hunts, 50% of successful first choice applicants drew those tags with 0 preference points. So ultimately, this change still results in high participation and opportunity for those archery elk hunters, including the ability to not expend preference points. The change has indeed given biologists the ability to reduce harvest across all user groups when biologically necessary, and have done so in recent years. As such, we plan to continue to maintain these controlled archery elk hunts. There are 2 general hunting regulation proposals before you today, and these changes apply to hunting all game mammals. So that's why I'm going to touch on that, and then Don and Sam can talk about the species-specific regulation proposals. The first revolves around prohibiting devices and equipment, and there are 2 changes intended to maintain expectations of fair chase amidst advancing technology. First, we already have rules prohibiting the use of electronic devices that connect or attach to a firearm or scope. However, to add clarity, we are proposing additional language to point out that they're also prohibited even if the electronic capability is turned off. Just making that very, very simple and clear. Second, the use of infrared devices is already prohibited, and technically thermal is a type of infrared. But with the major concerns regarding the increasing use of these prohibited thermal devices, we are proposing to add the word thermal to that rule to make the prohibition abundantly clear. We also received a request to prohibit hunting near wildlife crossing structures. We haven't observed any incidents since those structures have been put into place, but we've received interest to or there's a desire to ensure that those investments are not compromised. And so we actually have some regulations already on the books in our fur bearer regulations regarding you cannot set traps within 500 feet of one of those designated structures. And so we are proposing to borrow that rule language that we already have in place and propose that there is no hunting that occurs and no animals are taken within 500 feet of the mouth of a currently designated wildlife crossing on Highway 20 and 97. So now we will shift over to our specific big game hunt proposals, and I'll hand it off to my colleague Sam.
Good afternoon, Chair Wall, Vice Chair Hatfield-Hyde, Director Colbert, members of the Commission. For the record, I'm Samantha Fino, the ODFW Carnivore Fur Bearer Coordinator. First, I'm going to talk about the cougar population here in the state of Oregon. We manage cougars according to the Cougar Management Plan, and the objectives of the Cougar Plan emphasize population health, mitigating conflict, and species abundance and ecology. We have mandatory check-ins for all mortalities, including required harvest reporting, and we manage cougars according to 6 different zones across the state and use a number of indices to monitor the population. According to our plan, we are not to have a cougar population that falls below 3,000 cougars belonging to all age classes statewide. We use a deterministic density-dependent population model for each one of our zones and then sum those to estimate the population statewide. In 2024, we estimated that the state cougar population to be about 7,000 individuals across all age classes, which puts this population number or size well above the minimum of 3,000. The Oregon cougar population is stable and at carrying capacity. We also look at the 3-year average of the proportion of females 3 years or older across all mortality sources and ensure that that does not exceed 35%. As you can see from this graph, all of our zones do not even exceed 25%, indicating that a very low number of adult females are taken in the state. So for 2026, we are proposing to maintain a year-round season, maintain season structure, maintain a 2 cougar opportunity, which includes the additional tag, We are proposing no changes to zone quotas, and we are also proposing to the continuation of mandatory check-ins and the protection of kittens and females with kittens. Switching to black bears. Similar to cougars, we manage black bears through the Oregon Black Bear Management Plan, the objectives of which emphasize population health, conflict mitigation and management, species abundance and ecology, among other things. One of the requirements that we have in Oregon, again, similar to cougars, is that there are mandatory check-ins for all known bear mortalities, including roadkill and damage. We also have mandatory harvest reporting, where hunters are required to report on their tags. This provides us with several information and data on bears, which we use as indices to monitor the population. In addition to these indices, we also have a relatively new black bear model that we're using to monitor and manage the bear population in Oregon. And this approach is similar to that of other Western states in North America that also are managing black bears at a larger scale. Overall, Oregon has a healthy, robust black bear population, and numerous laws, regulations, and policies ensure maintaining a sustainable population. In 2020, as I alluded to in the last slide, we started using an integrated population model, also known as an IPM. This Oregon-specific black bear IPM primarily uses inputs from mortality information and data, harvest information, and density estimates from research that has happened in the past or is ongoing, in addition to several other factors. There is a model for each of our 4 black bear zones in Oregon. We run this model annually, and with our most current data, it suggests that our statewide population estimate is around 43,000 bears. The model is showing an increase in bear population in each zone across the state, and an example here on the slide is for northeastern Oregon, the zone that corresponds to that part of the state. For the 2026 spring black bear proposals, to report on 2025 data, harvest and harvest rate is very low. There's a 6% participation rate and success is about 16%. So for 2026, we are proposing 11,069 controlled tags across 19 hunts. This is a 1% increase from 2025. We are proposing an increase in 2 units due to the increasing black bear populations, as you just saw on the last slide, and low harvest rates. We are proposing to maintain season dates from April 1 to May 31st, and we are proposing to continue the protection of cubs and sows with cubs through maintaining regulations that have already been in place in previous seasons, making it illegal to harvest those groups. Switching to the fall bear seasons, we are proposing to maintain dates, so August 1st through December 31st. We are proposing to maintain season structure, so the 2 bear opportunity, which includes the additional tag. We are proposing to continue the protection of cubs and sows with cubs, as I mentioned, for the spring season as well. And we are proposing to continue mandatory check-ins of all mortalities, including those from the harvest.
Thanks, Sam. Chair Wall. Ungulate coordinator. Sorry about that. I'm the ungulate coordinator in the Wildlife Division for Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife. By ungulates, for those that don't know, that's everything that's native with a hard foot. Okay, she's got the soft feet, I got the hard feet. That, like Sam did, I'll go through some basic population information, and we'll talk about bighorns, Rocky Mountain goats, and all of our deer and elk and pronghorn. I'm going to start with bighorn sheep. Bighorn sheep is one of our more aggressive programs in the state of Oregon in the ungulates, and last year, 24-25 was no exception. Very busy from a capture, actually hands-on animals. Disease management in bighorn sheep is 90% of that whole program. We're very aggressive in our testing and removal program, which is the most recent method for managing Mycoplasma ovipneumonia in bighorn sheep across the West. It shows a lot of promise. We've seen a lot of progress even within the state of Oregon herds. Plus, we had some research going on in the John Day River, looking at our healthiest population in the country, actually, of California bighorn sheep. So most sheep work is done on sick populations. We're taking a lead going on a healthy population, so we know trying to restore populations and habitats and stuff like that, where we need to go. It's got a really heavy nutrition focus on it. Rocky Mountain bighorn, same thing. Most of our work there is all disease research and testing and removing up there. Coming winter is going to be pretty busy. We're going to continue a very aggressive test and remove program. We have some small research projects starting last year and potentially this year. We're also going to collaborate with our colleagues in the West because we do have couple of extremely healthy bighorn sheep herds. We're in a luxurious position where we can help other states that need animals, so we'll provide them as well. From a population standpoint, all this work is doing good things. Total population is continuing to increase, even though we have some, up and downs in our Rocky Mountain bighorns in Northeast Oregon, but our California bighorn sheep is starting to approach 5,000 total in the state, with about half of those in 2 herds. The Deschutes River and the John Day River, between those two are pushing up around 2,500 animals. Rocky Mountains are down to around 900. The fluctuations that we see as the trends go up and down are primarily because of pneumonia induced by Mycoplasma of pneumonia bacteria. That's why we continue to be so aggressive. From a proposed tags for 2026, we're proposing 136 tags across 30 hunts. That does include some ewe hunting opportunities as well in those very healthy populations. There will be no tag in the Winaha hunt, which was established a number of years ago, which rotates between the state of Oregon, Washington, and then the Confederated Tribes of the Umatilla Indian Reservation. So it's our tag for 2025. We have a hunt in there this year. It'll go to Washington next year, and then the 3rd dedicated years for the CTUIR. In total, there's 9 non-resident tags. For those commissioners that may not know, we have to keep our non-resident tag allocation in bighorn sheep between 5% and 10%. So we try to shoot for the middle, and it depends on there. Right for 2026, there'll be just under 7% total, so we're right in the middle. The 1 tag decline with the loss of that Winaha tag over last year. Moving on to our Rocky Mountain goats, these are the high altitude cliff dwellers. Those populations are holding pretty steady the last, 6 or 8 years, between 11 and 1,200 animals. They're actually doing really quite well. From a harvest standpoint, proposal for next year, we're proposing 21 tags across 12 hunts. There will be 2 non-resident tags in the Rocky Mountain goat tags, which is high on the percentage rate, between 5 and 10%, but it's hard when there's fewer tag numbers to get the number right. Interestingly enough, Rocky Mountain goat hunting in the state of Oregon is some of the best in the West. Over 40% of our harvested animals, if you're into trophy hunting, over 40% of them in the last 10 years are making the Boone and Crockett record book. So we have some very good goat hunting in the state of Oregon. In those, we will not have a tag for the Central Cascades hunt. This 2025 is the first year of that hunt. That is also going to rotate or flip back and forth every other year through an agreement with the Confederated Tribes at the Warm Springs Indian Reservation. Part of that herd does actually exist on the Warm Springs Indian Reservation. The hunters that are non-tribal have to hunt just in the wilderness area in the Mount Jeff area. Moving on to pronghorn, because of where this species lives in Oregon in the high desert portions, primarily of the Great Basin, this species is this is our ungulate canary as far as how the droughts and the climate cycles are operating in there. They're very responsive quickly to drought conditions. We've been in kind of a downward trend for the last few years, but we saw in our 2024 estimates, they responded a little bit to the last few years where our moisture was a little bit better. A lot of their habitats came out of that extreme drought, and it abated a little bit, and the population responded. That doesn't mean, since we saw an uptick, that we're going to stop paying attention to them. We actually put a lot of effort into keeping track of this species out there. They're kind of the desert gypsies out there. Sometimes they're hard to find, but we keep track of them. For 2026, there's a typo right there. Huh. on the slide. That's for 2026. I'll clarify that. It's correct in the packet, I believe. We're not proposing any season changes, and concurrent with that slide uptick, we're able to add a few extra tags, 13 tags, for a total of 2,086 tags in pronghorn.
Don, what's the total number of pronghorn?
We are just under just under 20,000 animals total. We're not one of the big pronghorn states. Those are Colorado, Wyoming, and Montana. But we do pretty good, and they've been consistent for the entire time period. I've been here bouncing between 18 or 19K to 24 to 25K. They just kind of bounce around and follow the water. Just add water, they do good. Elk. Elk is one of our more studied species in the state of Oregon. All of our management for Rocky Mountain elk and Roosevelt elk is very well informed with good science, good data, good research. A lot of it in the historical recent period is focused on Eastern Oregon, Rocky Mountain elk, but we've been stepping up our efforts in the Roosevelt elk in Western Oregon as well. From a population standpoint, we're doing okay, even though we're in, like for Roosevelt elk, we have fewer than we used to, and what our management objective says. Population objective is 70,850, but we're right around 78% or 54,000 animals. I do want to point out that with Roosevelt elk, we kind of need to look at two different portions of the state. If we look at the Cascades, those populations, most of those are well below their population management objective. But if you look at the Coast Range, most of those are doing pretty good, with probably the big difference being timber management and moisture patterns. There's more moisture and all of that stuff. But as a whole, we're doing okay. Rocky Mountain elk obviously are doing really well. We're at or above population objective in 2/3 of the WMUs in Eastern Oregon, which is pretty good. To move on to the seasons for elk, there's really not a lot of major change. The general seasons are going to move one day earlier, and this is consistent across all of our seasons that are tied to the start of all of our ungulate seasons, which are tied to the start of the deer season. That kind of sets our start date, and then everything moves relative to that. The only ones that aren't moving are the general season antlerless elk damage tag. You have to slow down to say that. And I never get the acronym right. Those will run either from 1st of August to November 30 or the 1st of August through the end of March. From a control hunt standpoint, there's a few changes. Most of those changes that are occurring are in the antlerless hunts, and those kind of come and go, and numbers change as conflict changes with local landowners. So in Western Oregon, there's 5 hunts going away, but we're increasing tags in 2 hunts, and that's because the elk move, conflict moves. Same thing's happening in Eastern Oregon, where 2 antler hunts are being deleted because the conflict's kind of abated in that area. Overall, it's a 1% decrease in the total controlled elk tags that we're offering for 2026. As is probably not a secret to everybody sitting up there, the most significant changes to deer hunting this year are in Eastern Oregon. This stems from the Mule Deer Plan, which this body adopted last year. And in that plan, it directs changes to the hunting seasons and structures and harvest allocation based on brand new herd ranges that were developed and published in 2023, the year before that. The first of these hunting and harvest allocation changes will be for the 2026 seasons, and that's what we're presenting, part of what's in our package today. An important piece of that harvest allocation is mule deer biology and ecology. This is one side, one rail on a train track going across Eastern Oregon, and that's the biology and how mule deer are going. Within that, on all of the other factors that are affecting mule deer populations, where it's climate change, whether it's development, whether it's fire. That's a really, really long laundry list. Those haven't gone away. Okay. The good news in all of this stuff that we've been monitoring is mule deer, also kind of a bellwether species with some of their winter range habitats, has responded to those recent years. So what we're seeing when we look at our population data, even though our total population is almost 172,000 animals out there, we're seeing a little bit of a decline in the rate the populations are going down. They're kind of flatlining a little bit. And if we look at our total population, they're fluctuating right around that 170 to 172. So they responded in the last few years to this abatement in our drought conditions in much of their winter ranges primarily. However, I do need to point out, as it's pointed out in the packet, that there's all of our 22 herds. If we look at all of our 22 herd ranges, the overwhelming majority of those, or about 2/3 of them, are in our extreme level of management concern. So we still have a long ways to go, but these next steps as we transition things, getting this one checked off of our list allows us to really start focusing on more actions like Grant County weed control or all of these things, so we can really start trying to jump in and start improving that mule deer landscape as well.
Don, are you going to show that page? That was in the information we got, that page with the management levels of concern.
I won't have that in the presentation.
No, I know it's not here, but it was in the supplemental information that we got. So I just wondered if you were going to show it at all today.
No, that's not part of the presentation.
I'll just ask a question later then on it. Thanks.
Sorry for that. I can dig it up on a computer somewhere and show it. Of course, the big change is the landscape change. We're changing the spatial scale of deer management in Eastern Oregon. Basically, to put it simply, what we're changing is where the boundary lines are for the hunt areas. That's a couple of slides down, but that's where I'm going. Since 1950, since the 1950s, deer management and all of our big game management's been based on wildlife management units. And this does include the range of the mule deer in Eastern Oregon. Now that's Rocky Mountain mule deer, because those that want to go in the weeds, blacktail are also a mule deer, but they're different. After an extensive effort of following over 1,500 animals across Eastern Oregon for 10 years, we let the mule deer tell us where they want to live. We let them define what a mule deer herd or a mule deer population is. Those 22 final herd ranges encompass the year-round needs of a mule deer population, and that's all the animals, or about 90+% of the animals that move around in that landscape. If you look real closely, you'll notice that the herd ranges and the WMUs are kind of at a disconnect. They don't match up very well. And just as some examples, the Ochco WMU, which has been on the books for a long time, actually has deer in that old WMU that come from 3 different herds. And if we look at it a different way, and we look at one of the other herds, the fox herd, for example, includes all or pieces of 5 different wildlife management units. That's important from a data standpoint. If the mule deer biology says we should look at this size of a vessel, we really need to get our data from all of the sources lined up. And that's what we're trying to do ultimately. So we're trying to line up our data. The biological data collection actually began a couple of years ago after we got our herd ranges delineated. So we've been collecting our data biologically, population trend, comp data, all of that stuff at the herd range level now for a couple of years. The final step is to line up our harvest allocation and our harvest management. That's what the new hunt areas for deer hunting in Eastern Oregon is designed to do. These proposed hunt areas that are before you in the packet, we tried to base those this year to distribute our hunting effort. We tried to engineer those, move those boundaries to places that were recognizable on the landscape and meaningful within the biology and ecology of the species within that herd. The primary purpose of that is to assist our hunters in distributing themselves on the landscape. We can't have all X number of hunters focus on the same drainage every year. We have to kind of distribute that effort across the population. So that's what these hunt areas do. The net result of this shift, the proposal is it would move from 47 Eastern Oregon wildlife management units to 43 new hunt areas. And then each of those is going to have a consistent hunting season and area and tag numbers consistent, just like it's been with WMUs. They're just a different little piece of the puzzle because we recut the puzzle. This final change we're proposing, it aligns the monitoring, the biology, the ecology, and the harvest effort and the harvest of animals taken within that harvest with the right population scale. Now, obviously, we in the department at the division, and I'm sure everybody sitting up here has received a lot of feedback on this process. And our efforts to prepare for this started a number of years ago, and we basically pulled out all the stops. We've been using every avenue to try to put this information out there in front of people that we could. It started with publication of the herd ranges, the mule deer plan. We've used a lot of print media. We've used digital media, social media, all the messaging, the email, lots of targeted outreach, including public meetings, discussions with sports groups and their leaders, et cetera. Direct communication, one of our biggest, most valuable opportunities to explain this is one-on-one conversation. It's happening at all the levels. We've made sure that even our Western Oregon staff have all the answers. We've been working hard now for over 2.5 years, 3 years to get this information out there. The information we're providing also comes with new tools and other information that we can provide. And a prime example is our new interactive map that's been on our website now 6 or 8 months. Since it first got up there, we've even added additional layers to it to help people understand. If you focus in the one graphic here, if you focus in, it even provides where the WMUs were, the new hunt area boundaries were. We're adding pieces in there for landowners to help them identify where their land is, the range township section information, because that is how we manage LOP and things like that. So we're trying to look as far down the way as we can to help people understand. The point with all of it is all of us, our hunters, our landowners, our guide and outfitters, we do need to spend a little bit of time looking at the information to make sure that we're applying for and acquiring the right hunt where we used to hunt and where we're familiar with it. In that, when we go back and you see the naming changes for Eastern Oregon, there's no reference to wildlife management units. And we purposely chose to do that to try to get rid of that communication. All the new names are brand new, fresh off the chalkboard. So we're trying to do what we can, where we can, as often as we can, as however we can to get this information out there. Moving from there onto our controlled deer hunting proposals. Not a lot of change in Western Oregon. But did I go too far? Nope. Got too excited. I thought I was close to being done. Here we go. Obviously, we got the calendar shift. There's not a lot of change to the tag numbers or no changes to the controlled hunts. There's a little decrease or increase in the Applegate doe tags. For Eastern Oregon, there's obviously a lot of change. And the tables are like twice as long as they normally are, but our process to clean the slate is to delete the old stuff, bring in the new stuff. That's what all of that extra length is. To condense that down in a nutshell, there's going to be 145 new hunts replacing 142 old hunts. So it's really not a monster change. That was for the buck hunts, the same thing for does. There's 22 new hunts replacing 21 old WMU based hunts. very similar to what's been on the books. It's just a bunch of new names with some lines in slightly different places. Overall tag numbers is an 8% decline in bucks and a 2% decline in antlerless tags. And this is the combination of the two tracks on that railroad track. We got a spatial change on one rail, and we got biology still occurring on the other rail, and we have to account for both. That's what the nutshell is of the whole package for Eastern Oregon. And in this process, we can't forget that we also took advantage of this and responded to some needs as we're getting white-tailed deer out in a good portion of Northeast Oregon. It's a good, valid, solid opportunity, and it also cleans up allocation in the harvest data for that portion of the state where they do occur together or occur sympatrically. And honestly, there's a fair number of people that are really starting to follow the whitetail deer hunting up there quite closely. Many of our units like Chesnam and Sled oftentimes have 40 or 50% of the harvest coming out as whitetail deer. So it's also a pretty valuable resource for us.
Why the switch?
Huh?
Why the switch?
To clean up our data.
No, why are so many?
Why are people going after?
Huh?
It's partly probably related to the proportions of the animals on the lands in those areas. But whitetail's a very popular species from a hunting standpoint, and it's kind of a unique species from a deer standpoint in the state of Oregon, because their populations have been growing, we think, over the last 20 or 30 years. And so it's a new novel opportunity for some hunters to go pursue that. And we do get some pretty nice animals out of there. Occasionally I'll see them. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Eric, and we'll get on to the home stretch.
Yeah, thank you, Don. So for some additional next steps of this pretty monumental change, one of the to-dos that is necessary to fully integrate these mule deer plan changes into our mule deer hunts includes establishing the crosswalk for buck mule deer landowner preference tags. I'm just going to call that LOP from here on, if that's okay. Currently, there are 3 tiers of LOP that determine the number of tags available, and that uses a formula based on how far each WMU is from its management objective. So for example, tier 1 is for populations that are at 80% of management objective or above, and the LOP tags are based on landowner acreage. Conversely, tier 3 are for those populations that aren't doing nearly as well, and those are the ones that are below 60% of MO, and their LOP tags are limited to 5 tags or 10% of the total controlled buck tags authorized for each hunt. Now, our new mule deer plan has modified the mule deer management objective structure and leans heavily now on these 5 management concern tiers that are the product of looking at population and growth rate estimates. And that's what Don was talking about, and Chair Wall, you were asking about that colorful table. I think it's table 7 on page 12. That's where you can see how the performance of each of those individual deer herds. And it's those 5 population tiers that we are using to try to direct our management of mule deer. So simply put, and maybe I'm kind of oversimplifying this, we need to determine how we are going to marry the current 3-tier structure that we have to this 5-tier structure described in the plan. So to be clear, we have not done that yet, and that is not something that is in our staff proposals today. There's been a lot of confusion amongst some current LOP landowners regarding the topic, and it's pretty clear that's evident looking at the public correspondence that we have received. We certainly can sympathize with some confusion coming from all of these mule deer hunt changes. So as we proceed to establish this crosswalk, our intent is to engage stakeholders on the LOP topic and bring a proposal to you, the commission, likely for the January 2026 commission meeting as a standalone agenda item. We feel that this separate process will help clear things up, clear up the confusion, and ultimately produce a good final product. And so as Don mentioned, we've put in a lot of time and effort and a lot of creativity on our communication strategies to date. I describe it as we have multiple phases, and I think we're about ready to head into another phase. We already have plans to continue our outreach campaign to inform hunters to help them prepare for the changes for 2026. Our next phase will focus on this window of time between when those mule deer hunts end in mid-October to the controlled hunt application deadline this spring, to try to really focus on and not also confuse people about the differences, or not confuse people that are still hunting in 2025. This includes additional magazine articles, print media, videos and tutorials, use of our messenger email service, and more. And as Don mentioned, we really are leaning heavily on this interactive web map that we have, and we've had a lot of experience with this, very much helping hunters have a good sense of how to use this area to understand what this transition is going to look like for them. And so we have plans to develop more tools, but also some short video tutorials perhaps to help people use these tools, because just putting them out there isn't good enough, and you can't just give somebody some written write-up of here's how to use it. So trying to do some short like YouTube videos and getting those circulated, I think will have a lot of value and be very helpful for people. So I will say too, we do echo the letter we received from OHA that this transition period concerns us. We really don't want our hunters to be frustrated and upset, nor do we want all of those phone calls. So we are very, very motivated and locked in to help everyone we can get to a comfortable place. So wrapping up or ending kind of our species-specific and series-specific proposals, just one or two last quick slides to talk about some additional housekeeping that's necessary. As you know, part of our budget development, we had a fee increase that passed the legislature, and these fee increases are critical for funding our core programs. And again, I want to take the time to show my appreciation, or our appreciation, for all the input and support we received from our stakeholders. Most of these increases are set in statute, but there's one that requires an adjustment of our rules, and that is the controlled hunt application fee. And that chart there up on the wall, it is second to the bottom, so it is currently an $8 fee. This fee has not increased since 2010, and we are proposing a 3-phase increase to match that of licenses. This was specifically included in the budget packet the commission approved in the ODFW budget projections. And this increase, along with the full fee package, will help do things like increase our CWD monitoring efforts. So let's talk CWD to wrap things up here. CWD monitoring is still an extremely high priority, as confirmed cases continue to surface closer and closer to Oregon. It is now in 3 cervid species and 3 of 4 border states with documented animal movements across the borders. We've seen a steady increase in sampling efforts and samples tested, with nearly 5,000 samples being collected this last biological year. And those samples are coming from taxidermists, meat processors, from roadkill animals, hunters, and from the work at our check stations. And you can see how the breakdown amongst those species in table 1 of the packet. We are very, very proud of how we've been able to increase those samples in recent years, and we are extremely grateful for the support of our hunters and the legislature, who are helping us increase our efforts with more seasonal staff and resources. However, we still have a lot more work to do to increase samples in number and distribution such that we can increase our odds of detection. We will continue to add to our research, our outreach campaign, and our partnerships, which is something that we're really focusing on right now, and to ensure that we can help everyone, all Oregonians, understand their role in keeping this deadly wildlife disease out of Oregon. So herein concludes our staff presentation. If the chair desires, we could take some questions before public comment, or just wait till after. Thank you.
Are there any immediate questions? Then we have three people to, what?
Not immediate.
When we come back, this is the chart I keep thinking of, so maybe when we come back.
Get her to
huh?
get that up. Would you, Chair, would it be, we can maybe try to work in the short term, Michelle, if we can get that on the projector if you desire.
In
It's pretty,
packet, it's free, and I think the page number should be on the bottom.
Yep, it is. Thank you. Thanks, that'd be great. Just a quick question on it when we get to it. We have three people testify. All are in the room. We appreciate you being here, and we have a chance of hearing you and seeing you instead of just watching on the screen. So Dean Pullman, Natasha Pullman, and Tom Metcalf. And if all three of you would like to just come up now, and then you could introduce yourself as you look like you're about. And we have two people to speak. I'll take that name off the list then. Dean? Okay.
Yes, he's my dad's first cousin. Oh, yeah. Not mean to freeze stuff.
Special.
That's great. Well, then why don't we go ahead with your Dean Pullman, right then?
That's correct.
And if you'll introduce yourself and for the record, turn on your mic, if you will, so the red bar comes on, the big red bar. There you go. And
Can
if
you hear
you
me?
will introduce yourself and if you'll try to keep it within 3 minutes, please.
I'll do my best. I've
Great.
climbed myself several times.
Perfect.
Yes.
Since a lot of people have a long drive, they
I
pay
know.
attention to these things.
Fortunately, I'm flying. But thank you for taking my letter, and commissioners, appreciate it. I'm coming from a different angle on the landowner tag. Again, my name is Dean Pullman. For 60 years, I've been hunting in Oregon. I'm self-employed, 53 years in the state of Oregon. I've been very fortunate to be able to purchase 14,500 acre ranch in Grant County, the Sylvia's Game Unit. We lease our cattle out to the neighbor through March 1st, August 31st, throughout the months, rotating and through 9 pastures and leaving 3 inches of grass on an NRC program. This is monitored by a gentleman by the name of Tony Swavekar, 25-year scientist, conservationist, and he monitors the program and the ranch. A significant part of Tony's work has been advising landowners on the best management practices for land restoration and habitat. Tony works with folks like myself who bought the ranch specifically for hunting. We are in all public programs, USDA, NRCS, and Watershed Council. Plus, I have a significant amount of personal funds to improve habitat. I have a strong land ethic, a personal tie to wildlife population. The reduction in LOP tags may take away incentives for landowners, for folks that do land improvement through these programs, and working with the ODFW. From my understanding, a new game management called the Aldridge has been formed, replacing 3 units, Sylvia's Ojico, Murders Creek. I'll give you an example. There's a highway that separates my ranch from the ranch across the street. He has 12,000 acres and gets 6 LOP tags. I have 14,500 acres and I get 5 LOP tags. The Harrisons are good friends of mine and we talk quite often. What has been explained to me, and I'm not sure I fully understand, but there will be a percentage allocated for LOP tags. Landowners don't know how this will affect the LOP tags. This changes partly because there's going to be 200 tags become available in the Aldridge unit. And this will also reduce the deer population in that unit on a declining deer population already. A big part of the mule deer population is on private property. And it's declining. Private land has a better habitat, better land restoration, better hunting ethics, way less hunting pressure. For example, Harrison's hunted last year and decided not to take a buck. Decided not to take a buck. We took 4 bucks on 50,000 acres of prime deer hunting property. Your own ODFW game biologists who collar deer onto our property to check fawns that have been killed by a predator, the coyote, with a 27%, their own figures, 27% survival rate. Predator control specialists, trappers, will tell us many have too many predators. According to ODFW, 70% of the adult deer are live predators in some units. My suggestion is if you're going to give out 200 more tags, at least take half the funds by the application fee and hire more trappers. Reduce predators, monitor cougars population. Remember, 72% of adult deer lost predators, 27% survival rate in fawns. I'm probably not telling anything new to anybody, but in our area, when I first bought the ranch, there was 200 deer out there on 7-mile stretch. There's now down to 50. And you can look at us and say, well, how do you know? We have cameras. Harrison's has cameras. I have satellite cameras. We see. And what's going to happen is we're going to put more traffic on the highway. And this is what's going to happen to our mule deer with frustrated hunters that don't get to see any deer, but they see deer on our property, little 2-point spike, 3-point. That buck right there was a mature deer, 28 inches, 4x3, beautiful animal. Was just shot 2 weeks ago, opening season of elk. I want to thank you. And from what I heard, the Fish and Game Department is a totally different view of what landowners feel. And those are the people you need to talk to. Stretch out and talk to those people. And the trappers and the real fish and game biologists that are out on our property with collared deer. I know I'm over my 3 minutes. I really appreciate your time. I'm not the only one that feels this way in our area. The whole watershed committee ranchers feel this way. They don't even hunt. I hunt because I have 4 sons, 2 little grandsons, my wife, and my sister, son-in-laws. I'm sorry. All right, I thank you.
Thank you very much. And no questions right now, so we'll go ahead and go to.
Stay here.
You're welcome to stay there, yes, until we finish the other one. That's
Thank
great.
you.
Okay, this is first off, thank you, Chair Wall and Vice Chair Hatfield. Thank you and the rest of the commission. This is, and I'll give you this after I'm done, Pioneer Hunt proposal. This proposal is to create new hunts for people in Oregon that have earned the pioneer status in regards to sheep and goats. To be clear, this would not change any existing hunts already provided. The new pioneer hunts would allow our aging pioneer license holders a better once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for these coveted tags. The new pioneer hunts would award preference points for those qualified. However, any pioneer license holder that has already drawn a once-in-a-lifetime tag would not be eligible. So that would be in concurrence with the way it is now. These new hunts would be determined by the ODFW, having the science for these species with respect for numbers and the health of the herds. I ask for the consideration of this proposal in respect for our pioneer license holders, just as you guys have created the recruitment program for the youth in our state. So you have any questions, I can answer them respectfully myself.
Okay. Questions? No. All right. Thank you, and appreciate you staying within the time. That was great. Yeah, we'll go ahead and, did you want to ask a question? No. Oh, okay. Thank you both very much.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
One last thing, I would like to be notified if there's going to be any movement. I know this is not going to happen overnight. This is just a starting proposal for the pioneer hunters. I know there's a lot of pioneer hunters in the state of Oregon, and this could also be a revenue stream with your putting in for these hunts and things like that to maybe do a little more research on these things.
Great. Could I, before you leave today, if the two of you could get connected, just so you have somebody to contact in terms of getting on, to make sure you get connected and get notifications that come out. So.
Yes, I will. Thank you.
So if you can meet Derek before you go.
You bet.
After we pummel him with questions. Thank you very much. See, we have several questions, so why don't we start with Commissioner Labhart and then Commissioner DeFries and then King.
Okay, thank you, Chair Walt. I'm one of those pioneer hunters. I've been hunting for 62 years, so I beat you by 2 years. I started when I was 12. One of my first, got my little hunter card, and I was 12 years old. So it tells you how old I am. So, I've got, my first question is for Derek. So could you, one more time, summarize in Cliff Notes what we're going to do about the LOP process in January, so that we make it very clear, because there's a lot of letters and concerns out there about that. So just summarize for me in the Cliff Notes what we're going to do in January.
Yes, Chair Wall, Commissioner Labhart, we currently have a 3-tier structure for our LOP tags, or limited LOP tags. And there is a formula that dictates what those tiers are. With our new mule deer plan, essentially we have 5 tiers that are of our management concern. And we need to establish a crosswalk of today's 3 tiers to the plan's 5 tiers. And knowing that that is something that one needs to be done, but is going to have a lot of opinions, a lot of thoughts, and arguably not nearly as much science as is going into a lot of our hunt proposals and delineation of herd ranges and those types of things. So it very much requires some necessary check-ins with our stakeholders, with our LOP landowners, with our hunter groups, to try to see if we can find some consensus on what that crosswalk should look like. Because there's a couple different ways that you can lump and split this thing out, getting it from 3 to 5. So the intent is we will then set forth, assuming everything goes well today and we get adoption, we will proceed with having a separate process. We've got a staffer already identified that's going to try to take this on and do some engagement with the public. And obviously with the filing deadlines and such, we have to give ourselves a little bit of time. And so that's why we're targeting January, as we think is a date that could work for coming back to you with what that crosswalk would look like.
Okay, thank you. So the next question is for you, Dawn. We in very short order, tell me why we are reducing those numbers by 8%. And I know there's a whole bunch of reasons, so don't go into a lot of detail.
Those tags would have declined 8% even if we had not gone through this spatial scale change, because certain populations in certain areas are continuing to decline. Bottom line.
Thank you for addressing the LOP and the 8%. And I also want to thank you, Derek, for going into a lot of detail about the robust public process that we will do with the public, our stakeholders, our landowners. Current deer season, which starts October 1. So I really appreciate that because there's still questions out there. So really, really appreciate that. So now I want to address the last concern, and might be for all three of you. Since I've been around so long, I hear the predator talk a lot. And, you know, I went out for the public 2 initiative petitions to ban the use of dogs for the cougars. Cougars is one of the major predators out there on our landscape. Those citizens of this state both times. So our hands as a commission are fairly well tied. Season from January 1 to December 31, pretty liberal season for taking cougars, and you can take 2, right? You can get so it is voters, and I don't know of many legislators that are willing to go against the will of the voters 2 times to change that law. Right now have that legal authority for hunting both bears and
populations, and that is nutrition and habitat quality. Our own research in Oregon on mule deer, to some degree blacktail, lots of information on elk, both subspecies starting to gain, shows that those species are driven by the landscape from the bottom up, and that's from the food up. When the groceries are bad, animals are in poor health, poor condition. They may not show it visually, but nutritionally, it takes a lot of energy and nutrition to make and grow and feed babies. And if the nutrition's not there, when those babies hit the ground, they're already in poor condition. It's called weak fawn syndrome. It was published in the 50s and 60s, about the time weak calf syndrome, I think, was published too, in that same time period. When the cows are in poor nutrition, the calves are not very thrifty and they don't survive. So nutrition really does drive that. The predation rates in the face of more tradition and poor nutrition tend to be abnormally high, which I think is what we have seen, especially in mule deer, as about the end of the 90s, our nutrition on the landscape for mule deer started to decline quite precipitously from a nutrition standpoint. And even in our best herds now, like the Murderers Creek, we are below the nutrition requirements for them to successfully raise their fawns on average. We have individuals that find little hotspots that are good, but on average at the population scale, they're below the nutrition level they need to be. And inherent in those is some of the information that we put out can sometimes be confusing and hard to understand. Point in case would be the percent of animals killed by predators in a telemetry study. Almost everyone I've looked at in the last 40 years, predators, percentage-wise, as far as cause of death, are the highest all the time. But that doesn't necessarily translate directly one-to-one for survival. It's really, really common to have the cause of mortality is 80, 90% lions, bears, and coyotes. But if they're surviving at 95%, we're in good shape. So what we do biologically to address this is we look at everything together. We have research and information coming in on nutrition on lots of species across Oregon, including pronghorn, Rocky Mountain elk, Roosevelt elk, mule deer, black-tailed deer, and bighorn sheep. That's all the ungulate species. We're doing nutrition work there. And it's showing us that's really the biggest driver. Then it becomes a death by 1,000 cuts as all these other things start adding in on top of it. Some of which are manageable, some of which are not. And other management tools for the predator species, yeah, they probably would help, but they're not a silver bullet. Our silver bullet needs to be fixing our landscape out there, and that's what our next steps are in the mule deer plan. We're really going to start trying to redirect and refocus and see what we can do to have our successes, like the annual annual grasses and things like that. We're gonna start trying to find how do we get from the landscape that's as degraded as it is to a better landscape. And honestly, we can't expect that to happen overnight. It took 4 or 5 decades to get down into this trough. And habitat's tough. It's going to take a lot of time for us to rebuild that landscape. And it's going to take a lot of collaboration from our hunters, our sports groups, our landowners, our federal land management partners. It's going to take a whole big package that we're going to have to start taking on some big lifts, bigger lift than the mule deer plan revision. It's going to be a big lift. We're not walking away from it. That's our next step. Part of our next big steps is to go into those. We have some clear items listed in our mule deer plan to try to help us get there. So hopefully I was able to address those comments or concerns. It was a little bit long-winded, but it's a big issue. And I've been looking at those comments since 1996 when I started here. They haven't changed much.
Yeah, that was great. Thank you.
Thank you. Helpful. If the other 2 commissioners are okay, I'm going to go to Commissioner Spellbrink so I don't forget him. So go ahead, Commissioner Spellbrink.
Thank you, Chair Wall. and I lost some connectivity there for a while there, so I didn't get to hear everything after Commissioner Labhart when he started talking. I had some of the same concerns, but I try not to rehash all that. I guess one thing, first of all, I'm guessing like on some of the big private land holdings, probably there might be some better nutritional value in some of that, you know, when they have raising some of the different crops that their cattle like, and I'm sure the deer and elk like also. But is there any avenue at all for private landholders, big landholders, to access predator control? I know I think when I went through the public testimony, I saw 10 or 11 at least, you know, that testimonies that, you know, were concerned with predator, and some of them were big landholders there and stuff. But is there any avenue where they can reach out for help with predator control, any of the private landowners?
Chair Wall, Commissioner Spellbrink, there are a few options available if the county that the landowners live in are participating in wildlife services programs, which is the federal animal control officers, then there's potential options there. The private industries, it's a little less likely that something like that could occur as a large scale opportunity. It would have to be turned more into a hunting type of framework. But there's also some opportunity within the damage statute. It's 498.012 or something like that. Any landowner experiencing damage from most of our wildlife species can manage that damage or that conflict themselves.
Okay, great. Yeah, okay, appreciate it. Yeah, because, and like I say, I know Commissioner Labhart started talking about the ballot measure that banned the use of hounds hunting cougars. And of course, that's when our populations of predators increased greatly. But there again, I don't think we have much control over that. And I was looking at the, you know, cougar harvest rates. There was 258, I think it said last year. Cougars harvested with 72,800 tags sold, but of course a lot of them are just come with a sports pack. But anyway, yeah, like I say, certainly hunting isn't going to have any effect on our reduction of cougar as a predator, that's for sure. The other question I had was on bears, black bears in Oregon. Are the spring bear tags, are they fully subscribed, or are there some left over every year?
Chair Wall, Commissioner Spellbrink, I think here of late, almost all of those tags go in the draw. So there's usually not any leftover. However, we get really into the weeds of our tag terminology, but I'm sure a number of those tags are not actually picked up, but they are spoken for in the draw or used. So there's all different tiers, but yeah, the spring bear continues to be a very, call it popular activity in that they all are allocated in the controlled hunt process.
Yeah, and you know, I've never taken advantage of it, but I have family members that all hunt, you know, apply for spring bear, and that's to be productive as far as higher harvest rates. It seems like it's if you're a serious hunter, it's much easier to harvest a bear on that spring hunt. It just seems like with the bear population we have now that maybe, and I see it's like a 16% success rate on the spring bear, where it's quite a bit lower for the general fall bear. But I guess what I would just say is, why don't we raise, with the bear populations the way they are, why don't we raise those spring bear tag numbers a little bit? Has that been discussed?
Tim, like to take a crack at it? I can fill it.
Chair Wall, Commissioner Spellbrink, we have increased tags for spring bear hunts in different units over the past several years. It's been a few individual hunts at a time, but that has been the consistent trend over the last several years. So 2 of which are proposed to have an increase in this particular 2026 harvest regulation packet.
Yeah, it just seems to me like looking at the bear numbers in Oregon, that we could, greatly increase maybe some of those spring bear tags and make a little money while we're doing it, selling a few more licenses and applications. The other thing I noticed in the general fall bear, it said 2023, there was a success rate of 11.5% based on the participation rate. But then when I ran the numbers for 2024, I think it was 1,649 bears with 22,207 hunters participating. That success rate, if I did my math right, came out to like 7.4%. That's a pretty big decrease in success rate. Went from 11.5 to 7.5 or 7.4%. Is there any reason? Just is that weather conditions, hunt conditions? You got any reason why that might happen? Such a large decrease in success rate?
Chair Wall, Commissioner Spellbrink, success rate is driven by a number of factors. It could be accessibility, environmental conditions, effort by the hunter themselves. So it's really difficult to pinpoint exactly what caused that drop. But these metrics, whether that be number harvested or effort, are tracked and part of the mandatory reporting. So we keep an eye on all of those things for both spring and fall bear harvest. And we'll continue to monitor that as proposed into the future.
Yeah. Anyway, it just seems to me like looking at the bear population in Oregon, and we could afford to maybe have a few more, especially the spring bear tags that they're so popular. As long as that population is excessive as it is, I just don't know why we can't add a few more spring bear tags. Okay, that's my soapbox. Thanks.
Thank you, Commissioner Spellbrink. Let's go to Commissioner King and then Vice Chair Hatfield Hyde, and then I have a couple.
Great. Thank you, Chair Wall. And thank all of you for your fine presentation. It's always good to get that reminder of Don and I out there doing our cameo. I learned from Don during that trip that he'd rather be out there wrestling with bighorn sheep in the mud than sitting before us. So, so that's always fun. A lot of my concerns probably echo what has already been said and in agreement. And I think, the feedback that we get is, it's almost like a broken record. Like Don, you said you've been reading the same thing since 1996. And I think there needs to be a larger understanding that the predator trapper loop with the legislature has nothing to do with us. And I really wish we could get past that. And I really wish that there was some kind of messaging that we could kind of keep conveying, that if you want this to change, the change doesn't come from us because we're not the ones who implemented all of it. So it's a bigger, larger problem that we could do our best to manage, but the tools for us to manage have been taken away. So that's the biggest takeaway, that, because we hear this, not just when we have the hunting regs, we hear this all the time. So, I mean, that's a larger, talk about a landscape level conversation. Maybe that needs to be a part of that larger landscape conversation. And to follow on a little bit with Commissioner Spellbrink, I kind of agree. Like when I look at the spring bear and the spring bear numbers and the bear numbers in general and how they're surging, it reminds me so much of turkeys, which I realize we're not talking about birds. We're talking about the big game, but it's the same thing. And in terms of like everywhere you go, there's more and more turkeys, and people are complaining about the turkeys. And you see the graph just spiking up, and and they say, oh, we'll increase the tag by 5, and you're just like, really? So I mean, I just wonder, is it incremental because we want to make sure we don't overstep? So can you explain that a bit? Because when you look at those charts just surging, and we make 2 more. I mean, people just kind of go, really? So maybe explain that a bit more, if you can.
Chair Wall, Commissioner King, Yes, I would agree. Maybe it is incremental and a little bit slower than people may want to be realized, but we also balance several different stakeholders. So we have to take some considerations into that mindset as well. But that also allows us a framework where we can look at harvest data and monitor those trends. So if we can increase, like we can do that steadily each year versus kind of jumping the gun, so to speak. And to elaborate a little more on your comment about messaging, that is something that's been discussed very recently within the Wildlife Division, both internally and externally, and kind of highlighting the from the ground up type of influences of ungulate declines, as well as maybe the legislative processes to change some of those predator control tools. So that's something that we've been discussing, you know, in headquarters on developing in the next several months. So hopefully more on that too.
Thank you. And to shift gears a little bit, because you showed the table, it's really minuscule on our screen. It was big up there, but I've been asking for, where's the table where it shows the hunting licenses and it shows current year and then effective 26, 28, and 30, the increase where you step it up. And second from the bottom was the controlled hunt application, again, that you step it up. So where is this? Where do people go and find this table that I couldn't find either? This table, it's this thing. It was in your presentation with the little deer beside it.
It is on the department's budget website, Commissioner King, Chair Well. You know, again, over the next several months, as we're getting these locked in with the remaining rules that you've approved, we're going to have quite a bit of outreach before the new license year. But we needed you to actually finish kind of adopting the some of those fees officially before we could push on outreach and information.
Thank you, because that was what I was asking Ken with all the technical problems we were having. Like, this kind of needs to be more front and center. And it relates to my final question is, which ones you were saying, Derek, is it the controlled hunt and those increases help with chronic wasting? Am I getting that right? The funding for?
Chair Well, Commissioner King, yes. Some of those funds or that source, we see the value in utilizing those funds for things like CWD sampling.
Okay. And now this was years ago during one of the Portland tours, we tried to link you guys up with a bunch of the big butchers that are there, like Gartner's, Otto's, White's Country Meats. Are you guys, are those kind of connections being made? Because I know that like they have special hours during hunting season. They do huge numbers. So are they like in the effort to help with you collecting your data?
Chair Well, Commissioner King, maybe not those individual companies, but yes, we are leaning heavily on our partnerships. We're trying to work with our taxidermist meat producers to try to collect those samples, and we pay them $10 per sample that they collect. But certain businesses opt out of it, or it's, you know, they only want the meat. They do not want the head or the other things. So they are never going to be coming across the samples or the body parts to take the samples. So sometimes it just does not align with kind of their business practice.
Okay.
But we are fortunate in that we've now got permanent seasonal CWD staff around the state that they're continuing to go out and knock on doors and try to recruit more and more of those businesses and services to help expand this sample collection effort.
Right. Okay. And I'm happy to share with whomever those folks are, because I know all of the processors around Portland, and all of them they don't turn away anything. I mean, they have extended hours for hunters to drag in whatever and they would happily like give to, like, especially if they're going to get paid for it. So I remember, if you guys remember, when we all went to the meeting place, or we had folks from the meeting place that came and did one of our lunches, like they would be involved in that effort, that kind of thing. So I think there could be some more outreach with that in terms of some of those groups that would help with our sampling as well. So,
Commissioner King, I think actually the processors are maybe the highest category of samples that we're getting for CWD. Is that?
To look at it, but they're on top. They're beating the check station. Actually.
Yeah, so they are an extremely important partner.
Yeah, those are the taxidermists, and there's a few taxidermists that are just knocking that out of the park. So they're very, very helpful in the process.
thank you. That's all I have. Thank you.
Vice Chair.
Yeah, okay. So I'm gonna in a way repeat quite a bit of what's already been said in a way, but I just want to, I just want to echo maybe what Mr. Paulman, how do you say your last name? Pullman, thank you. You know, I've only been looking at our ranch on the edge of the Maoris for 50 years, so not that long, but I hate the way we feel on the land in relation to these mule deer. And the thing is it's not like you guys aren't listening. It's in your charts, right? So we can't show up and be like, hey, you don't listen to us, because you are listening and you do have the information. And I feel like on this commission, this is like what, how long have we been on this commission?
6 years.
6 years. 6 years. I feel like we're hearing the same thing every year this comes up. And I look at this and I go, okay, so like for cougars, we're supposed to, our management objective for the state is 3,000. We have 7,000. We can feel the predators in these communities where we live. You can just feel them because you live there and you're out there and you know what's going on. And we can feel these mule deer just continuing to totally hit the wall. I feel like our pronghorn, like on our ranch, the pronghorn have just bing. So many beautiful big pronghorn. This year, yes, we've got some nice looking, you know, females with twins, you know, their condition's better because we got a little better condition coming out of that horrid drought. But I don't know, it just makes me feel sick. What's happening with our mule deer. So this isn't a question so much as a statement. And it also is upsetting to me because I think it's also part of this divide that we need to get away from in this state. Back to what we were talking about with the beaver working groups. We put together beaver working groups that were very collaborative across huge divide to get to what we got to with those beaver work groups. And we were using science as it related to our trapping. And it just got, I mean, I don't think we could have designed a more collaborative approach to that whole thing to try to drag in every corner of perspective in Oregon for that process. And I look at this situation we're in, like with cougars today and the Oregon legislature, and I feel like, yeah, our answer is our hands are tied. Go to the legislature. Guess what's going to happen when you go to the Oregon legislature? Good luck. Our mule deer are crashing. They're cracking up. Our beautiful mule deer are cracking up. And we're in this loop, and it is nutrition too. It is nutrition. I hear that. I know you're right. It is death by they're getting hit by cars. They're dealing with fragmentation. Look at you know, when you guys have created the new hunt units that are based on the migration, their actual migration, you can see where some of those migrations are rolling through. And that some of the pinch points on those migrations are so urban. The winter range that we looked at to the west of Bend, where everybody's on a mountain bike 24/7. I mean, we are just putting so much pressure on these animals in so many ways. So I just feel frustrated that I wish we could be a little bit more proactive. I don't know if we could have Director Colbert send a letter to, I don't know who, the governor. I don't know what we can do to just be like, we're kind of really hitting the wall here, and we keep doing Groundhog Day with this every year, and we're looking at what Mary has right here, which is this chart that's all red. That is not good. So I don't know, Director Colbert, if you have an idea about how we could like be a little bit more aggressive and say, look, this is a problem. We're not, this is like the blob in the ocean and we freak out about fish, right? Like this is like not cool anymore. What can we do?
Well, I don't have I'd have to give that some thought. I mean, what I hear you saying is that I love the heat dome analogy that you just referred to, that got so much coverage.
Yes.
And everybody was kind of talking about, the decimation. And are we all really talking about where these mule deer populations sit in our state? So definitely seems like there's more we can be doing to bring attention to this. And we can think about that. I mean, genuinely, I'm hearing what you're saying. I just have to give that some more thought and think about what tools do we have in our toolbox to be leaning in on that messaging.
So what could be like a nick point for that? Maybe by the time we come back for the LOP landowner conversation, maybe there could be, I don't know what it could be. I recognize that we are at the mercy of the Oregon legislature. Do we talk? Just do something, please. Yeah.
We'll do some follow-up in January. Thank you.
Okay.
Just to keep going, I'm going to move to a slightly different take on it. I have a couple questions and a comment, but first, thanks for the report and also for the proposals that came in from the audience and for people staying here all day to have the proposals and we can have the conversations. I think that's really useful input and back and forth. A couple questions. One is, and I think that you touched on this already, but the archers and the controlled hunt, could you talk a little bit about whether they're maybe not completely happy, but are they satisfied because they are getting to hunt? The opportunity is there. It looks different than it did, but just are we okay with that group on that issue?
I hit that. I do think it's working a little bit. There's what I'm not hearing on those controlled elk hunts is I couldn't get a tag, I didn't have any place to hunt or anything like that. Some of the standard issues that we always hear about is crowding. People go to the same campgrounds. That's something that's just not going to go away. But as far as whether that switch from the general season to the controlled hunts, I think that's working very well. There's plenty of opportunity, not all the opportunities being used, things like that. There are still some occasional concerns because during that process a number of years ago, one of the big perceptions of lost opportunity was the ability with the general season tag, if I don't see an elk in unit XYZ, I can go to unit ZYX. For those controlled hunt units, that piece did go away. But most of the archers that are elk hunting aren't that easily mobile. Okay, that loss was from west side hunters going to east side, then being able to go back to west side. Well, that's gone away. If you draw an Eastern Oregon controlled elk hunt, you can't go hunt the general season in Western Oregon. We have some general season elk hunts left in the desert country, I think. Yeah, those still have that ability to move around. But that core area, the blues and the Wallowas, you draw that tag or purchase that tag as a leftover, that is your opportunity. You can't go bouncing unit to unit. So that's really the only real loss I think that some people may not like, but we're not getting a bunch of pushback over the last 3 years on that. I think folks are okay with it.
That's useful to know. That's for framing that because and I appreciate that you're checking back in on it. We tried that. We'll look at it again. I'm sure, but I appreciate that. The other one that I was going to ask, but I think that we've sort of touched on this chart unless there's anything else that you wanted to add to it. I mean, I found it, of course, it's just alarming what the numbers are, and there's only one blue box. So anything you want to add, Don? And then I'm going to go on to one other thing.
Yeah, I mean, that one blue box is an improvement.
Good point.
Okay, so, yeah, that was an improvement. When it dropped from orange or yellow to blue, that means we did see some improvement. And what I would like to say, that bright red table is not that much. I want to reiterate, it's really no different than what would have happened if we weren't going through this big process. I think that's the message there, is they'd been in dire straits for a couple of decades. If we hadn't been doing this big shifting scale, you know, we would have added 1 or 2 units to a farther gap between their population MO and the observed population. The majority, the overwhelming majority of all of the mule deer LOP hunts have been in that most restricted tier for quite some time. So even in the LOP or any of these other processes, that's where they've been for probably 6 or 7 years for the majority of all of those Eastern Oregon control hunts. There's not a lot of change from this mule deer plan directed shift spatially and all that stuff. The changes are because of the biology and ecology of our mule deer.
Yeah,
That's what's driving all of that.
When I look at this chart, it looks remarkably like the fish charts that we've been
Yes.
looking at. And when I look at this, what it tells me is I go right back to what you said about it. Yes, it's the predators, and yes, it's the fragmentation, and yes, it's a whole bunch of other things. And yes, it's the shape of the land that they're on.
Yes.
And when I tie this one to mule deer, or whether it's mule deer or coho at the top of it, for coho, this state took 2 decades of significant investment for 2 decades in that condition, in that base for them, that habitat. And we are in that kind of a crisis with mule deer too. So I think that's how I interpret what you said about mule deer. So
Well, and I will add that the agency is as committed to recovery of mule deer as our constituents are demanding that we do something. I think the agency is there. I really do think ODFW wants to recover mule deer like everybody else in the state does. Our role in the future is to implement actions on our landscape at a meaningful scale for mule deer, which are a landscape level species. That's why these herds are the size that they are. They move a lot. I think the only species we have that moves more is elk, which is down the road. So yeah, I mean, I want to reassure the commission and the public that might be listening that the agency's not walking away now that the plan is done. I mean, that's next on all of our district biologists. Our districts want it, our constituents want it, our commissioners want it. So the agency's not going anywhere. We're not walking away and we're not turning our back. It's just a matter of how we get there, how we pay for it, and how we design it so that it really does become meaningful. And it is going to take a long time.
They do.
It is going to take a long time.
Thank you. Let me ask one question to you. I think it's yours, Derek. On the LOPs, usually when I think about that, I think about damage. If there is damage on a landowner's property, then that's when you would look at the LOPs as a response. Is it also the case that part of the formula has to do with how much the landowner has done for habitat?
Chair Wall, I will say that LOP is not damage related.
Then I'm glad I asked the question because you can straighten me out.
So there's a damage world, there are tools, there are landowner damage tags. We have particular hunts that we adopt that cater to that. As we heard yesterday, we are in an elk de-emphasis zone, which means that even more tools are available in the toolbox
to
get them out. LOP does not have any conditions associated with it. It is very simply a landowner program that whereby landowners can get tags for hunting. So is there a condition of LOP whereby a landowner has to do something for deer or the species that they're hunting? No, there's no condition. But certainly you could say that the work that landowners have done and continue to do to help with, say, mule deer being the example, certainly is going to help the population.
Right.
That in right now, in our current tier structure, if you're able to increase that deer population, that means that the calculation of how many LOP tags you're trying to calculate goes up. So there is a multiple step way to follow it, that there is indeed incentive to improve mule deer habitat and mule deer populations across private land and public, and if available, then that will then increase the population, which then increases LOP tags that could be available.
Thank you. And before I bring on a bunch of questions, and I can see that Dean wants to talk too, but we're getting late in the day, and so this has got to be really quick because we're going to have a bunch of conversations on this. I'm almost sorry I asked the question at all, but we're going to have a bunch of conversations on this very issue before January. So if there are 3 questions, let's ask them, but be quick on it if we will. So
30 seconds.
Go.
The way I look at LOPs is this is a thank you to landowners who are housing the state's deer, are providing their forage and their habitat, their hiding cover, their thermal cover. This is a way for the state of Oregon to say thank you. We're going giving you a tag for your property to be used by you as a thank you for having the state's animals on your property. So that's the way I.
Thank you. It's useful. Commissioner King and then Commissioner Hatfield-Hyde, and then we'll stop there.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. More of an idea, like just musings. As all of you know, I'm the communicator, and I'm always thinking about how to communicate. And thinking about how you, Don, have been suffering and listening to the same thing for 30 years. Like, how do we break the wheel? And, you know, that awful table, that needs to be an interactive map. Not your interactive map about like, oh, these are the new whatever, and they have a new name. That's lovely. But if you made an interactive map about the decline of mule deer range and showed the mountain bikers zipping around and showed them getting nailed on the highway and, you know, and all these sorts of things. And then, oh, by the way, you drivers kill more than the hunters. You know, like there's so many ways. I think what we need, I think the wall that we're hitting, and I see this over and over, because as a doctor and I'm in the health sciences and all that, you have to get out of your own head. You have to realize that the science is not enough. We need to phone friends. We need to get the communicators in the space. We need to get the artists. We need to get people to understand, like literally understanding, like I can tell you people in Portland don't get it. They're like, there's deer in the freaking yard. Like we hit them with our cars. So what are you talking about that there's this deer population that's crashing? They don't get the differences. There really is that east and west divide. And it's not just because of like, you know, urban versus rural. It's about like, people don't understand the sagebrush sea. They just don't get it. You know, they don't get it as a space that's alive. And so I think we need to kind of get more into that space of again, phoning our friends, bringing in that human dimension that we did for wolves, that we did for coho. I mean, the Salmon Superhighway, their signage, they don't even make it anymore because people steal it. It's so wildly popular. People completely get that for coastal coho. Nobody has to explain. And it wasn't until we helped and got other folks in the frame to help us tell that story that we got over that hump. So you could show all these graphs and tables in the world. You do it for 30 years and you wouldn't get any traction. So I think that that's where we need to kind of start to pivot. And maybe that'll help us get out of this. Because you're right, to just sit here and look at this, I don't think I can do it anymore. I just can't. So that's where, you know, just throwing some ideas like spaghetti on the wall thing. Let's just get something else happening.
Okay, I promise I'll be fast, Chair Wall.
Yes, and we are losing our electrons, so.
Okay, that's all right. We're I lost electrons a long time ago. I guess one thing that's very, very interesting about this whole trip that we've done here to Malheur County and getting everybody over here and going out on the tour and looking at what's happening with the big fires, looking at what's happening with invasive weeds, what's happening with juniper, what's happening with sage grouse areas, what potentials there might be around mitigation, how we have a lot of landowners who are in, sage grouse plans that could benefit from mitigation that would also help mule deer, or maybe there's an initiative here that is about the sagebrush biome for Oregon, like what this thing, like we light it up a little bit. We care, we put a little bit more care into it. We do a little bit more outreach. We do change the way we're telling the story. Get it out of its silo. It's not just about mule deer, actually. It's all these things piling up, right? And we make it a little zippy somehow.
Yes, I am ready for a motion.
Okay,
Thank you.
I'll make the motion, but first of all, I just want to say thank everybody for their input to us. It's very much appreciated. We all read that, and thanks to the interest groups for, I think it was pretty, I wouldn't say unanimous, but a lot of support for what staff has done. You guys did a good job. And so there's probably some tweaks that need to happen, as we know, with like LOP and up, but I want to thank staff for the good work. So, Madam Chair, I move to adopt the staff proposal to amendment attachment 3 and amend OAR 635, 045, 060, 065, 066, 067, 068, 069, 070, 071, 072, 073, and 075 as proposed by staff, with continued authority to correct grammar, punctuation, and consistency.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded by Commissioners Labhart and then Hall DeFreeze to adopt the staff proposals and amended attachment 3 and amend OAR chapter 635 as was just read into the record. Let's do a roll call, if you will, Michelle.
Labhart.
Yes.
Hall DeFreeze.
Yes.
King.
Yes.
Spellbrink.
Yes.
Hatfield Hyde.
Yes.
Wall.
Yes.
Ifrog King. Did I pass over you?
No, I said yes.
Okay.
Happily, we'll say it again.
I got everybody then.
Thank you, everyone. And we are adjourned. No, we're not adjourned. That, just on that topic.
You're adjourned. We're not.
See you on the highway. We will move right to the, go ahead. Oh, a short, 5 minutes. We'll be back in 5 minutes for the last two. Huh?
Yes. I want one too.
Commissioners, Director Colbert. I'm Spencer Sawaski, the Habitat Division Deputy Administrator, and I am here today to introduce Exhibit E, the Oregon Conservation and Recreation Fund. You are being requested to approve the latest round of expenditures for the OCRF grants. I have Reba Gilman here remotely to walk us through the details. And with that, I will turn it over to you, Reba.
Thank you, Spencer. First of all, I'm hoping everyone can see the slides. Is that showing up in the room that I'm
They are.
sharing? Okay, great. Thank you so much. Good afternoon, everyone. Chair Wall, Vice Chair Hatfield Hyde, Director Colbert, and members of the commission. Thank you for the time today to speak on behalf of the Oregon Conservation and Recreation Fund. As Spencer mentioned, I'm Reba Gilman, OCRF Grant Coordinator. And today the OCRF Advisory Committee is seeking Commission's approval to fund 19 projects that were selected from our most recent request for proposals. A little bit of OCRF background for anyone online that's not aware. OCRF was created in 2019 within ODFW as a way for Oregonians to support a broad range of conservation and outdoor recreation efforts throughout the state. OCRF received drought package funding from the legislature in 2022 and 2023. And since then, the request for proposals have focused on projects that will address the impacts of drought on the state, as well as the broad OCRF mission goals. So the advisory committee seeks to make diverse expenditures in each funding round. For this competitive round of funding, OCRF received a total of 101 project proposals. It's the most we've ever received in a round. Projects are reviewed and scored using established criteria, which is shown in attachment 4 in the packets. And each project proposal was reviewed by technical reviewers from ODFW staff and OCRF Advisory Committee members. Now I'll go into just a little bit more depth on the recommended projects. Of the 19 recommended projects, 13 addressed drought impacts to fish and wildlife, and 6 were focused on non-drought related conservation and/or outdoor recreation. These projects represent a diverse portfolio. They encompass all ecoregions of Oregon, are diverse in their taxonomy, representation of program priorities, and partner engagement. They also engage underserved groups who have not traditionally participated in conservation issues or outdoor recreation in the past. I'd like to highlight just a few projects for you all from this round that should have high impacts on drought for the state, including the 2026 Trail Champions, Public Engagement and Education on Drought, Wildfire, and Recreation. That's led by Trail Keepers of Oregon. There's a Portland State University project monitoring the drought resilience of wetlands and pond breeding amphibians in the Mount Hood Conservation Opportunity Area. There was also strategic focus on outdoor equity projects, ones that provide access to the outdoors to underrepresented groups. Here's a few that OCRF is proud to fund in this round, both going to new grantees of the OCRF program. The Fishing and Shell Fishing with Oregon's Physical Disability Community Project, led by Oregon Spinal Cord Injury Connection, and a River to Action project that will empower underserved leaders to implement conservation plans in Malheur County, led by Friends of the Owyhee. In your commission packet is attachment 3, submitted projects overview, that summarizes all of the project abstracts that we received in this round. And attachment 2 in your packet lists the 19 projects recommended for funding from this round. The committee was unanimous in their approval. The projects selected advance the goals of the State Wildlife Action Plan and our strategic initiative of connecting everyone with the outdoors. One of OCRF's goals is to engage new and diverse applicants, and I'm happy to report that about half of the selected projects are new grantees for the OCRF program. So staff recommendation is to approve the selected projects totaling $1,040,461 as recommended by the Conservation and Recreation Advisory Committee. With the funding of these projects, OCRF will continue to promote science-focused conservation and research, as well as outdoor equity and access. I'd like to thank all of you for your time, and of course, the OCRF Advisory Committee and chairs for their continued time and dedication to the program. And with that, we are happy to answer any of your questions.
Thank you, Reva. Thank you, Chair Wall. Clearly, I am not shrieking into the wilderness because I always ask, how many repeats? How many are new? So it is really great to hear that 50% are new. 50, that's fantastic. Do we have any repeats this time? I couldn't tell if yet.
Half of the projects, about half of them are repeat grantees that have had a prior grant from the OCRF, and then about half of them are new to the program.
Okay. And we've been sitting, I think, around between 40 and 50% of repeats. That's been pretty consistent. Am I understanding that right?
Yeah, it's been about around there. That's correct. Mm-hmm.
Are we working yet with the vice chair? He used to be the vice chair. He might still be, Maurizio, and some of the outreach. And so moving more into outreach into other communities. Is that coming to fruition yet?
Yeah, the OCRF program just wrapped up a communications planning initiative with a contractor, and Mauricio was a part of that process. And so that just wrapped up, and we're kind of in the process of figuring out how to use the materials that were provided and how and where to use them, and getting organized on for the next year. So that will be coming soon, driving that initiative more forward.
And is one of the goals to decrease the repeats, or what was, I guess, some of the outcomes of that, or are we still developing that?
We're still developing it, but one of the goals is to increase new and diverse applicants to the OCRF program.
Right. And I just need to tell you, thank you. Thank you for answering all my questions. And I just need to state for the record, actually, I have to abstain because I know 2 of the new people that got grants. So I'll abstain, not because I don't support it, but I want to just avoid any kind of appearance of conflict of interest. But I just want to say that. So when you hear me abstain, it's not because I'm upset or think that you didn't listen to me or it's any sort of thing like that. So thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner King.
Sorry. Commissioner Spellbrink, do you have your hand up?
Yes, I did. Thank you, Chair Wall. Just a quick plug here. I noticed going through all the projects here that were, in the mix. I see number 4 and number 20 was the lead organization was ODF&W, and they were both on sturgeon. And maybe they felt like they didn't fit the criteria exactly, but I thought I would use this opportunity to mention that, sturgeon right now are kind of the mule deer of the rivers and estuaries. Would go on in last 30 years, maybe at the most, from absolutely, incredible population to now all the fisheries are closed and the populations are crashing, a lot of it again due to predation by sea lions. Anyway, I just use this opportunity to make a plug that we're talking about mule deer a lot because they crashed, and it's something we need to keep in mind is the sturgeon population has crashed the same way.
Thank you. Go ahead, Commissioner.
Well, just a follow-up comment, if we passed 1% for wildlife, we probably could have funded those. So.
I usually ask a question about how many of these projects went to something related to beaver, because this was one of the ones that we were looking to for that. And I did check with staff earlier, and the answer was we were looking more for drought this time, and within that, a lot of the work related to beaver as well. So I don't have to ask my perennial question. So I will ask instead for a motion.
Okay, here. Okay. I move to approve the 19 projects recommended for funding by the Oregon Conservation and Recreation Advisory Committee as described in attachment 2.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded by Commissioner DeFreeze and Hatfield Hyde to approve the 19 projects recommended for funding by the OCRF Recreational Advisory Committee as was read into the record. Let's do a thumb vote on this one, if we could, commissioners. Can we see Commissioner Spellbrink? Then it's 5 in favor, so unanimous from the people who are here. And we,
No, that's abstain.
4, I'm sorry, 4. And 1 abstention. Thank you very much, and we will go to you, Travis. Come on up. Thank you for the last item today. Thank you, Spencer, for.
It's Reva.
Oh, it's Reva?
No, I said thank you.
Oh, I said it's Reva. Oh, man, did I miss another one? Go ahead and introduce yourself and jump right in. Bob, would you like, I understand that you are back. Would you like to vote on the OCRF item?
Absolutely, yes. Yeah, I don't know what happened. It went away and I had to re-log in.
Thank you for logging back in and for your vote. So it's unanimous, or it's all but 1. Yes. Go ahead, Travis.
Good morning, Chair Wall. Huh? Good afternoon, sorry. Yes. It's like, wait, what? It's like, I can see your name. Yes, good afternoon. Vice Chair Becky Hetfield Hyde, Director Colbert, and the members of the commission. For the record, my name is Travis Schultz, the Access and Habitat Coordinator. I have 3 A&H projects before the board and 2 appointments today. First up are the 3 A&H board recommended projects. Detailed descriptions for those projects are included in the commission packet. The Gastina Gate install will assist in motorized management, or the management of motorized access on the East Lane TMA. The Rogue River Preserve improves riparian forest habitat and allows limited youth hunting. And the lawn salt cedar treatment has the potential to rid Harney County of this newly found salt cedar infestation. I can pause here for commission action, or I can continue on to the appointments.
Go ahead, will you please go through them and then we'll.
Okay, will do. Is there a direction you have to point this? Okay. For the hunter representative, the department received 2 applications, which are included in the commission packet. The department recommends Nick Calero be reappointed to a second 4-year term on the A&H board. Nick has done an excellent job as a board member, and his experience with legislation throughout the western states and wildlife issues is a huge plus to the board. For the landowner rep, the department received 5 applications, which are also included in the commission packet. The department recommends John Daler III as landowner rep to his first term on the A&H board. His community involvement, he's a rancher out of Prineville and has been on numerous other natural resources boards, and his son is on our local, the regional council, A&H Regional Council. With that, I can answer any questions you have on the A&H packet stuff.
Thank you. Go ahead, Commissioner King, and then I have one quick comment.
Thank you, Travis. Explain to me, how big is your budget for A&H?
For limitation, it's right around 3.2 million per biennium.
Right. The reason I'm asking is all of these projects are tiny in terms of the A&H fund. So that means you have money left over that you use for other projects, I guess, that come across later?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, this is a smaller ones. We have others going on. We also, just to be really brief, we've been fairly conservative in the last few years because we do get federal grants. And with the uncertainty of those continuing, to be able to kind of extend those out, we've been conservative to ensure we do have the remaining balance at the end of the day if we have to cover those for a year or two. And so we've been fairly conservative on that way as well.
And can you explain the percentage? Because it's access and habitat. And overwhelmingly, I see access. So what is the percentage access and what is the percentage habitat, if you know?
I don't have an exact number off the top of my head as far as dollars go.
No, I was thinking percentage. Do you know, like, is it 2/3, 1/3, or is it even split?
It would not be 50-50 as far as how much we're spending on each. I couldn't tell you off the top of my head what the percentage would be of the total number of projects. It worked out to be, we maintain like all total about 1.4 million acres of access and do about 21,000 acres of habitat.
Oh, wow,
work
so it's
per
not even
year.
close. Okay.
So, but again, access you can get for, in some cases, 32 cents an acre. Habitat doesn't really start until your dollars an acre, many dollars an acre, especially for anything that's heavy involvement. Juniper removal is very expensive. Applications of spray is very expensive. And so there are some limitations there. And as we get more certainty on where the federal budget looks, we'll have a greater ability to do more habitat work.
Right. Thank you. Because, when we think about mule deer crashing and all the problems we've got with habitat, my goodness, I realize it's limited funding, but boy, we need every penny. Okay, thank you. Thank you. I'm done.
Thank you, Commissioner Labhart.
Yep, just for the record, I want to make sure that the public knows that the recommendation was approved unanimously. All three projects were 7-0 by the Access and Habitat Board. So,
And the only comment I have is I want to thank you, Travis, because the three projects in front of us are habitat. And we've been asking about that a bunch of different times, and I appreciate it. I don't know how you managed to make it happen, but thank you. Is there a motion on this one?
Okay. For issue 1, I assume we're doing issue by issue. Okay.
Good point, yes.
Issue 1, I move to approve the 3 projects as described in attachment 2 that were recommended for funding by the Access and Habitat Board.
Been moved and seconded. It's been moved and seconded twice but Commissioner Hall DeFries and Labhart were the first two. And so to approve the 3 projects as described in attachment 2 that was just read into the record, let's do a thumbs vote on this one, please, commissioners. It's unanimous, Michelle. Could we go on to a vote on or a motion on issue 2?
Madam Chair, I move to appoint Nick Calero to serve a 4-year term as a hunter representative on the Access and Habitat Board.
Is there a second?
I'm not going to second. I was just going to say I'm going to abstain because I know one of the applicants. So
I'll second. Nick's appointment.
It's been moved and seconded to appoint Nick Calero to serve a 4-year term as a hunter representative on the Access and Habitat Board. And could we have a thumbs up vote on this one as well? So it's 5 and 1 abstention. Is that right, Commissioner Hall DeFries? Yes. Issue 3.
I move to appoint John Deller III to serve a 4-year term as landowner representative on the Access and Habitat Board.
second.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded by Commissioner Hatfield Hyde and Commissioner Hall DeFries to appoint John Daler to the 3rd to serve a 4-year term as landowner representative, as was just read into the record. Could we do a thumbs up on this one as well, commissioners? And it looks like unanimous on that one. Thank you, everyone. I think this time I mean it when I say we are adjourned. Thank you, Travis, for staying the whole day to do this. I appreciate it.
Well done.